I will never forget the only time they tried to break me. Whitney Houston rose above it all. The night everything changed. The air in the Shrine Auditorium was thick with a tension that had nothing to do with anticipation and everything to do with malice. It was the mid-1990s, a period that should have been a triumphant continuation of Whitney Houston's reign as the undisputed voice of a generation. Instead, it felt like a gauntlet. She stepped out of the sleek black limousine, the flashbulbs exploding around her like a sudden, violent storm. Her smile, usually a beacon of warmth and confidence, felt a little tighter tonight, a practiced mask over a growing unease. She was dressed impeccably, a vision of elegance in a custom-made gown, but even the finest silk couldn't shield her from the icy stares and whispered judgments that seemed to follow her like a shadow. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. She was nominated for multiple awards, her latest album a commercial success, her voice still unparalleled. Yet, the buzz wasn't about her talent, it was about everything else. The tabloids had been relentless, painting a picture of a diva out of control, a woman losing her way. The industry, once her most ardent supporter, now seemed to be turning its back, its collective gaze cold and critical. She could feel it in the way certain publicists averted their eyes, in the forced smiles of former collaborators, in the thinly veiled condescension of interviewers on the red carpet. Whitney, some critics are saying your sound has changed too much. Are you still connecting with your core audience? One reporter dared to ask, her microphone thrust aggressively forward. Whitney, ever the professional, offered a gracious, if weary, response about artistic evolution, but the barb had landed. As she navigated the crowded lobby, the murmurs grew louder. She's not the same, one voice hissed, barely concealed. Lost her way, another echoed. The most insidious whispers, however, were the ones that questioned her authenticity, her blackness. For years, she had been criticized for being too pop, for crossing over too successfully, for not fitting neatly into the boxes the industry had created. Now, those criticisms were weaponized, used to alienate her from the very community that had first embraced her, and to justify the industry's growing disdain. It was a cruel irony, a double-edged sword that cut deep. She had always strived to be a bridge, to unite people through music, but now it felt like she was being torn apart by the very forces she sought to transcend. She found her seat, a prime spot near the stage, but the proximity only amplified the feeling of being under a microscope. Every move, every expression, every breath felt scrutinized. She saw familiar faces, fellow artists, producers, label executives, but their usual camaraderie was replaced by a palpable distance. It was as if a silent decree had been issued, a collective decision to ostracize her. The betrayal stung, a sharp, unexpected pain in her chest. These were people she had worked with, laughed with, shared stages with. Now, they looked at her with a mixture of pity, judgment, and a strange, almost predatory curiosity, as if waiting for her to stumble. The show began, a blur of performances and acceptance speeches. Whitney tried to focus, to enjoy the music, but the weight of the atmosphere was suffocating. She felt an invisible hand pressing down on her, trying to diminish her, to make her small. It wasn't just about the awards tonight. It was about her spirit, her very essence. They weren't just criticizing her music, they were trying to break her. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't just a bad night. This was a coordinated effort, a calculated attempt to undermine her, to strip away her confidence, to silence the voice. A cold dread settled in her stomach. She had faced challenges before, navigated the treacherous waters of fame and expectation, but this felt different. This felt personal, a targeted assault on her soul. She looked around the opulent auditorium, at the glittering crowd, and for the first time, she felt utterly alone, surrounded by a sea of faces that seemed to wish her ill. The lights, usually a source of exhilaration, now felt like spotlights in an interrogation room. She clenched her jaw, a flicker of defiance igniting in her eyes. They wanted to break her. They wanted to see her fall. Not tonight. Not ever. She had come too far, fought too hard, to let them win. The battle lines had been drawn, and Whitney Houston, the girl from Newark with the voice of an angel, knew she had to fight back, not with anger, but with the only weapon she truly possessed, her unparalleled gift. If you want to see how Whitney Houston responded to this unprecedented challenge, and if she managed to rise above it all, make sure to subscribe to our channel right now. During a commercial break, the illusion of polite society shattered. Whitney, needing a moment of respite, excused herself to the backstage area, hoping to find a quiet corner. Instead, she walked straight into a gauntlet of whispered conversations and pointed stares. The air backstage was even more charged than the auditorium. A hive of industry power players, publicists, and artists, all seemingly united in their judgment of her. Her first encounter was with a senior executive from her own record label, a man who had once championed her, now looking at her with a mixture of concern and thinly veiled exasperation. "Whitney," he began, his voice low but firm, "we need to talk about your image. The numbers aren't what they used to be. The public is confused." He gestured vaguely, as if the entire world's confusion rested solely on her shoulders. "This new direction you're taking, it's alienating a lot of people. We built an empire on the voice, on that wholesome, accessible image. We need to get back to that, Whitney. For your career, for your legacy." Whitney's eyes narrowed slightly. "My new direction is called growth, Mark. It's called artistic expression, and my voice is still very much here." She tapped her chest. "As for my image, I am who I am. I've always been authentic. Authenticity doesn't sell records when it's perceived as problematic," he retorted, his voice hardening. "The media is having a field day. The not black enough narrative, the diva stories, the rumors, it's all impacting the bottom line. We need to control the narrative, Whitney. We need to clean things up." His words felt like a direct assault on her identity, a demand to conform to a sanitized version of herself that no longer felt true. As she tried to move past him, she was intercepted by a prominent music critic, a woman whose reviews had once lauded her as a prodigy, but who now seemed to relish tearing her down. "Ms. Houston," the critic purred, a condescending smile playing on her lips. "A word, if you please. Your recent work, it lacks the purity, the emotional depth of your earlier material. It feels forced. Are you perhaps trying too hard to prove something? To whom exactly?" Whitney met her gaze, refusing to flinch. "I'm trying to prove nothing, ma'am. I'm simply making music that reflects where I am in my life. Art is meant to evolve, to challenge, not to remain stagnant." "Or perhaps," the critic pressed, leaning in conspiratorially, "you've lost touch with what made you special. That raw, gospel-infused power. It seems to have been replaced by something else, something less authentic." The insinuation hung heavy in the air, a thinly veiled attack on her roots, her very foundation. It was a cruel twist, as if her success had somehow invalidated her origins. Later, as she tried to find her dressing room, she passed a group of younger artists, some of whom she had mentored. Their laughter died down as she approached, replaced by awkward silence and averted eyes. One, a rising R&B star, offered a hesitant, almost apologetic nod, but the others simply stared, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and judgment. It was a stark reminder of how quickly allegiances could shift in this cutthroat industry, how easily one could become an example, a cautionary tale. The isolation was profound, a chilling realization that even those she had inspired were now being swayed by the prevailing narrative. The pressure mounted with each encounter, each whispered slight, each veiled accusation. It wasn't just about her music anymore. It was about her character, her choices, her very right to stand among them. They were trying to chip away at her confidence, to sow seeds of doubt, to make her question everything she believed in. The weight of their expectations, their criticisms, and their thinly disguised contempt felt like a physical burden, pressing down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. She felt a tremor of fear, a fleeting moment of vulnerability. Could they be right? Had she lost her way? Was she truly losing her magic? The thought was terrifying, a poison seeping into her mind. Imagine being in Whitney's shoes, facing such intense scrutiny and betrayal from all sides. What would you do in that situation? Would you fight back, or would you let the pressure get to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Whitney finally reached her dressing room, the heavy door clicking shut behind her, sealing her off from the hostile world outside. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the cacophony of judgment she had just endured. She sank onto the plush velvet couch, her elaborate gown feeling like a lead weight, her carefully constructed composure threatening to unravel. The mirror opposite her reflected a woman on the verge of collapse, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion, her usually vibrant spirit dimmed. She closed her eyes, and the memories flooded back, a torrent of images from her past. She saw herself as a little girl in Newark, singing in the New Hope Baptist Church, her voice soaring, pure and unburdened. She remembered her mother, Sissy Houston, a powerhouse vocalist in her own right, instilling in her the discipline and the spiritual connection to her gift. "Nippy," Sissy would say, "your voice is a gift from God. You use it to uplift, to inspire. Never forget where it comes from." She saw the early days, the excitement of her first record deal, the dizzying ascent to superstardom. The world had embraced her, celebrated her, crowned her the voice. She remembered the joy of performing, the electric connection with her audience, the sheer ecstasy of sharing her gift. But with the triumphs came the sacrifices. The relentless touring, the constant demands, the loss of privacy, the endless scrutiny. Every choice, every relationship, every perceived misstep became fodder for public consumption and judgment. The criticism about not being black enough had always stung the deepest. How could they question her heritage, her roots, when gospel music was the very foundation of her artistry? She had always been proud of who she was, a black woman from a lineage of incredible singers, carrying on a powerful tradition. Yet, the industry, in its infinite wisdom, had tried to package her, to smooth out her edges, to make her palatable to a wider, predominantly white audience. She had navigated that tightrope with grace, but the constant pressure to define herself according to external expectations had taken its toll. Now, it felt like all those years of sacrifice, all that hard work, all that dedication to her craft, were being dismissed, even ridiculed. The voices of the critics, the executives, the tabloids echoed in her mind, amplifying her deepest insecurities. Was she truly losing her touch? Had she become a caricature of herself? Was the price of fame too high? The doubt was a venomous whisper, threatening to consume her. She felt a profound sense of loneliness, a crushing weight of expectation and disappointment. She had always been a fighter, but tonight, she felt utterly depleted, on the precipice of giving up. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, then another, until silent sobs racked her body. She buried her face in her hands, allowing herself, for just a few moments, to feel the full force of the pain, the betrayal, the exhaustion. This was her breaking point, the darkest hour before the dawn. She had given so much, poured her heart and soul into her music, only to be met with such hostility. It felt unfair, unjust, and utterly heartbreaking. She was Whitney Houston, the woman who could move mountains with her voice, and yet, in this moment, she felt utterly powerless. The thought of walking back out there, of facing that judgmental crowd, felt impossible. She just wanted to disappear, to escape the relentless glare of the spotlight. But then, a faint melody, a familiar gospel hymn, began to play in her mind. It was a song her mother used to sing, a song of resilience, of faith, of enduring strength. It was a reminder of where she came from, of the power that resided within her, a power far greater than any criticism or doubt. The tears slowly subsided, replaced by a quiet resolve. She might be broken, but she wasn't shattered. Not yet. Not ever. Whitney Houston faced immense pressure and doubt, but her inner strength was undeniable. If you believe in the power of resilience and the strength of the human spirit, please give this video a like to show your support for Whitney. Slowly, Whitney lifted her head, her eyes still red-rimmed, but now holding a flicker of something new, defiance. The gospel melody swelled in her mind, a powerful anthem of self-belief. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, not with despair, but with a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every artist who had ever been told they weren't enough, every black woman who had been told to dim her light, every person who had been judged for daring to be authentic. "I will never forget," she whispered to her reflection, her voice hoarse but firm. "I will never forget who I am. I will never forget where I come from. And I will never forget why I sing." The words were a vow, a promise to herself, a declaration of war against the forces trying to diminish her. She thought of her grandmother, her mother, her aunts, all strong, resilient black women who had faced their own battles and emerged victorious. Their strength flowed through her veins, a powerful legacy of perseverance. She stood up, her movements deliberate, a queen preparing for battle. She walked over to her makeup artist, who looked at her with concern. "I need a touch-up," Whitney said, her voice steady. "And make sure my mic is perfect. Tonight, it has to be perfect." There was a quiet intensity in her eyes that brooked no argument. The makeup artist, sensing the shift in Whitney's demeanor, nodded silently, understanding that something profound had just happened. As she was being prepped, she began to mentally rehearse the song she was scheduled to perform. It was a ballad, a powerful anthem of self-love and resilience, a song she had poured her heart into. Each lyric resonated with her current struggle, each note a testament to her unwavering spirit. She closed her eyes, visualizing the performance, not as a desperate attempt to win over critics, but as an offering, a gift of her truth to the world. She would not cater to their expectations. She would simply be Whitney. She would sing from her soul, as she always had, and let her voice speak for itself. Her internal monologue was a fierce affirmation. They wanted to see her broken. They would see her rise. They wanted to question her authenticity. She would lay her soul bare. They wanted to silence her. She would sing louder than ever before. This wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving to herself that her spirit was unbreakable, that her gift was divine, and that her truth was non-negotiable. She remembered the countless hours in the studio, the passion, the dedication, the sheer love for music that had driven her from the very beginning. That love, that pure, unadulterated joy of singing, was her shield and her sword. A stage manager knocked on the door. "5 minutes, Miss Houston." Whitney took a deep breath, a deep, cleansing breath that filled her lungs with courage. She looked at herself one last time in the mirror, a faint, knowing smile gracing her lips. The woman looking back was no longer on the verge of collapse. She was a warrior, ready to reclaim her throne. She smoothed down her gown, adjusted her earrings, and walked towards the door, her head held high, her stride purposeful. The fear was gone, replaced by an unshakable resolve. She was ready. Don't miss a single moment of Whitney's incredible journey and her triumphant return to the stage. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you're always updated with our inspiring stories. The stage lights hit Whitney as she walked out, a hush falling over the previously buzzing auditorium. The applause was polite, hesitant, laced with the same skepticism that had followed her all night. She stood center stage, bathed in a single spotlight, her presence commanding, regal. She didn't offer a forced smile or a nervous glance. Instead, she simply looked out at the sea of faces, her gaze steady, unwavering, almost challenging. Then, she nodded to the band, and the first, haunting notes of her chosen song filled the air. Her voice, when it came, was not just a sound, it was an experience. It was pure, raw emotion, channeled through a vessel of unparalleled power and grace. Each note was imbued with the pain of betrayal, the weight of expectation, the fire of defiance, and the unwavering strength of her spirit. She didn't just sing the lyrics, she lived them, pouring every ounce of her being into the melody. The vulnerability was palpable, yet it was intertwined with an unyielding power that silenced every whisper, every doubt, every critic. She closed her eyes for a moment, lost in the music, her body swaying gently, her hands gesturing with an almost spiritual fervor. The runs, the riffs, the soaring high notes, they weren't just vocal acrobatics, they were declarations. They were her truth, her testimony, her refusal to be broken. The audience, initially guarded, slowly began to shift. Heads that had been bowed in judgment began to rise. Faces that had been etched with skepticism began to soften. The sheer, undeniable force of her talent was breaking through the wall of prejudice and preconceived notions. When she hit the bridge, her voice rising to a crescendo that seemed to shake the very foundations of the auditorium, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated beauty, a testament to a gift that transcended genre, race, and industry politics. It was the voice, in its purest, most authentic form, reminding everyone why she was, and always would be, an icon. Tears welled up in the eyes of some. Others simply stared, mesmerized, completely captivated by the raw power and profound emotion emanating from the stage. As the final notes faded, leaving an echoing silence in their wake, Whitney opened her eyes. She looked out at the audience, her expression one of quiet triumph, not of arrogance, but of vindication. For a beat, the silence held, a testament to the profound impact of her performance. Then, as if a dam had broken, the auditorium erupted. It wasn't just applause. It was a roar, a standing ovation that shook the rafters. People were on their feet, cheering, whistling, some wiping away tears. The critics, the executives, the former collaborators, they were all standing, their faces a mixture of awe, regret, and undeniable admiration. She had not just performed a song, she had delivered a sermon. She had not just sung, she had healed. She had not just risen above, she had soared. The moment was a powerful reminder that true artistry, true authenticity, could never be truly broken or silenced. Whitney Houston, the woman they had tried to break, had instead reminded them of the enduring power of her spirit and the undeniable magic of her voice. The aftermath was immediate and profound. The narrative shifted. The whispers of doubt were replaced by shouts of praise. Her performance became legendary, a moment etched in the annals of music history, a testament to her resilience. She had faced her darkest hour, confronted her deepest fears, and emerged not just victorious, but more powerful, more authentic, and more beloved than ever before. She had shown the world that even when they try to break you, true brilliance will always find a way to rise above it all. And in that moment, she knew, with absolute certainty, that she would never forget the night they tried to break her, because it was the night she truly found her unbreakable strength. Whitney Houston's legacy is one of unparalleled talent, resilience, and authenticity. If you were moved by her story and her incredible ability to rise above adversity, please give this video a like and share your favorite Whitney Houston memory or song in the comments below.